What if everything you ever wanted destroyed everything you ever had? There is an old saying from the land of our ancestors: the man who chases 2 rabbits catches none. But what happens when a man chases an entire kingdom and loses his soul in the process? Today, I want to tell you the story of Amadi, a man who had the respect of his village, the love of his people, and a future as bright as the Folktale cliff at sunrise. And he threw it all away. This is not just a story. This is a warning. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will never look at ambition the same way again. Picture the village of Ilisanmi, a place where the red earth smells of rain and roots, where elders gather under the ancient Iroko tree as the sun bleeds orange into the sky, where handshake means more than any written agreement. This is where Amadi was born, son of a respected farmer, raised with calloused hands and a curious mind. From a young age, the elders pointed at him and said, that one is different. And they were right, but not in the way they hoped. Amadi was sharp, charming, ambitious. He wore his agbada, his rich, intricately woven robe like armor, pressed, perfect, not a wrinkle out of place, because in his mind, appearances were everything. When he finally stood before the council of elders, smoothing the front of his agbada with steady hands, they welcomed him with open arms. You are born for greater things, Amadi, they said. And deep inside his chest, something dangerous stirred. Not gratitude, hunger. Now, in every village, there is always one person who sees through the mask before anyone else does. In Ilesanmi, that person was Adesina, the wise old woman, whose words were few but landed like stones dropped in still water. She once pulled Amadi aside and said, quiet as the wind before a storm, ambition can overshadow the key to truth. Amadi smiled, nodded politely, and walked away, because Amadi had already made up his mind. The old ways would not feed him. He was meant for more. But here is where the story gets interesting. There was also old Kolo, the village baker. Round face, flour-dusted hands, a man who smiled, like he had never carried a heavy day in his life. Every morning, Kolo would hand Amadi a warm loaf and say, you will always find your way. Simple words, but they carried the kind of warmth that made you feel like someone genuinely believed in you. Then, one day, Amadi walked past Kolo's store, and the old man barely looked up. No smile, no loaf, just silence, thick and uncomfortable as wet cloth on a hot afternoon. Something had shifted, and Amadi felt it in his stomach, even if he refused to feel it in his heart. Here is the thing about ambition without wisdom. It does not fall off a cliff all at once. It slides, slowly, quietly, one small compromise at a time. First, Amadi aligned himself with a new faction rising within the village. Men with sharper eyes and smoother tongues. Men whose ambitions matched his own, but whose methods whispered of darkness. He told himself it was strategy. Then, when Ilesanmi's rival tribe launched an attack, Amadi found himself tangled in alliances that would have made the elders turn their faces away in shame. He told himself it was survival. His cousin Neka, a woman with gentle hands and a gaze that seemed to look straight through you, came to him one afternoon. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Amadi, do you not see what is happening? The darkness is creeping in. He laughed. He actually laughed. You are soft as the shadows you speak of, he told her. Strength lies in power and control. Trust me. But even as the words left his mouth, something in her expression stopped him. Just for a moment. A silent plea. A question without words. Is this still you? He pushed it aside and kept climbing. There are moments in life that try to turn you around before it is too late. Amadi had his moment by the stream near the Folktale cliff. He had returned, full of laughter, full of the fire that comes with feeling unstoppable. And there he saw old Kolo, kneeling by the water, breaking a dry piece of bread, just one dry piece, and placing it carefully into the trembling hands of a hungry child. Kolo's own fingers were shaking. He had so little, and he gave it away without hesitation. Amadi watched this, and something cracked open inside him. Small, but real. He stepped forward, tried to speak. Kolo looked up at him with tired eyes. Not angry, not bitter, just tired. And he said only this: to remain loyal to ambition is to forsake the ones you love. Amadi laughed it off. Of course he did. He even reached for the child's hand, but the boy pulled back. A child, sensing something that grown men in power had missed. When Amadi stood before the elders one final time, he was not the same man they had welcomed with warm handshakes. He sat at the edge of the gathering. Not at the center where he once dreamed of standing, but at the edge, like a man who already knows he does not fully belong. And then Adesina stood. She lifted a smooth, old stone, worn by years, shaped by rivers, and held it out toward him. You have always chosen the way to climb the cliff, dear Amadi, she said, her voice like dry harmattan leaves. Yet never have you descended. Never have you acknowledged those below your feet. Silence fell over the gathering like a heavy cloth. And in that silence, Amadi felt everything. Every dismissed warning, every waved away hand, every laugh in the face of those who loved him, rise up and stand before him like witnesses. His cousin Neka stood at the edge of the crowd, fingers trembling at the hem of her cloth, and he asked, voice breaking for the first time. And if I am wrong, he wanted to say it. He wanted to tell them he would make it right, that he would descend the cliff, that he would break bread again with Kolo, that he would look his cousin in the eye without shame. The words were right there, sitting at the edge of his tongue like a man on a ledge, deciding whether to jump toward mercy or pride. But he waited too long. The air went still. The elders bowed their heads, and the sound of feet shuffling away was quieter than any punishment could ever be. Adesina's stone slipped from her fingers. It hit the ground with a sound so sharp, so final. It echoed in his chest like a door closing forever. The villagers did not curse him. They did not shout. They simply moved on. And in many ways, that was worse. As Amadi stood alone in the fading light, he heard one last voice drift toward him from the crowd. Amadi, do not forget who you are. And standing there at the foot of the cliff he had spent his whole life climbing, he finally understood what Adesina meant. It was never about the climb. It was about who you bring with you. The greatest tragedy of Amadi's life was not that he failed. It was that he succeeded, and arrived at the top alone, surrounded by nothing but the echo of the laughter he had long since lost. Our ancestors knew something we are still learning. Power without people is just loneliness with a better view. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever met an Amadi in your life? Someone who had everything: talent, love, community, and let ambition pull them away from all of it. Or maybe, and be honest with yourself, have you ever been Amadi? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you of someone, share it. Not for the algorithm, not for the numbers. Share it because someone in your circle might need to hear this story today. If you are new here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you never miss a story like this. And if you have been here before, you already know. Every week, we bring you stories that carry the weight of our ancestors and the truth of our times. Next week, we have a story that will shake you even deeper, about a queen who chose silence over pride and changed the fate of her entire kingdom. You do not want to miss it. Until then, know who you are, remember where you came from, and never climb so high that you forget the hands that lifted you. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.